Who gave you permission to touch that? The sharp voice sliced through the melody as Elijah's fingers froze on the expensive guitar strings. Standing in the doorway, the mansion's wealthy owner glared with fury and judgment. How dare the maid's son touch her precious possessions? But what happens when raw talent collides with privilege and prejudice? When a simple act of musical passion reveals years of injustice and hidden pain? My son is not a thief, Mrs. Hartwell. Will a mother's defense be enough, or will talent remain silenced by those who refuse to see beyond their walls? This heartbreaking yet ultimately triumphant story will leave you speechless. Dear viewer, if you are watching my story for the first time, I humbly request you write the location from where you are watching right now, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon now not to miss the notifications of my daily published new stories. Thank you, and let's dive into the full story. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the polished marble floor of the Hartwell mansion's east wing. Vivian Hartwell's Louboutin heels clicked rhythmically as she made her unscheduled inspection of the property. At 45, the widow maintained the estate with military precision, her sleek blonde bob as perfectly aligned as the priceless art on her walls. She paused. Something was off. Music, beautiful, soulful guitar music, drifted from her son's music room. But Marcus was at lacrosse practice. Vivian quickened her pace, fury building with each step. Someone was touching her son's things, the custom-made Fender guitar that had cost more than most people's monthly salary. As she rounded the corner, she froze in the doorway. A young black teenager sat on the window bench, his eyes closed in concentration, fingers dancing across the strings with a skill that momentarily left her speechless. The sunlight streamed through the window, highlighting his focused expression. What do you think you're doing? Vivian's voice sliced through the melody. The boy jumped, nearly dropping the instrument. His eyes widened with panic as he carefully placed the guitar on its stand. I'm sorry, ma'am. You were just what? Touching things that don't belong to you? Vivian stepped closer, her voice dripping with accusation. That guitar costs more than your mother makes in 6 months. The boy stood, wincing slightly as he straightened his back. I know, Mrs. Hartwell. I'm really sorry. I was waiting for my mom to finish her shift, and you decided to help yourself to my son's belongings. Vivian cut him off. What's your name? Elijah Williams, ma'am. Gloria's son. Recognition flickered across Vivian's face. Gloria had worked for her for almost 8 years, but Vivian had only seen her son a handful of times. He was taller now, around 17, with his mother's gentle eyes that currently reflected nothing but fear. Does your mother know you're in here? Does she know you're touching things that aren't yours? No, ma'am, Elijah said quietly. She doesn't. She'd be upset with me. You're absolutely right about that, Vivian snapped, reaching for her phone. I'm calling her right now. 5 minutes later, Gloria Williams rushed into the room, still wearing her uniform, her face etched with worry. Mrs. Hartwell, I am so sorry, she said, breathlessly. I had no idea Elijah was in here. He was supposed to wait in the staff area. Vivian's expression remained cold. I caught your son playing my son's extremely expensive guitar without permission. This is completely unacceptable. Gloria turned to Elijah, disappointment and fear in her eyes. What were you thinking? Elijah looked down. I'm sorry, Mom. I couldn't help it. Vivian stared at them both, her lips pressed into a thin line. I think you should both leave for the day. We'll discuss this tomorrow when I've calmed down. As Gloria hurried her son out, Vivian watched them go, noticing for the first time how Elijah moved with a slight stiffness in his posture. But her anger overshadowed any curiosity. All she could think about were those unauthorized hands on her son's prized possession. Elijah winced as he lowered himself onto their worn couch, the springs groaning under his weight. Their small apartment was only 15 minutes from the Hartwell mansion but existed in a completely different universe. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, watching Gloria pace the small living room, still in her maid's uniform. I know I messed up. Gloria finally stopped, exhaustion etched in the lines around her eyes. At 38, she looked a decade older, life having exacted its toll. 8 years, Elijah. 8 years I've worked for Mrs. Hartwell without a single complaint. I can't lose this job. The benefits cover your medical bills. Elijah nodded, shame washing over him. I know. It won't happen again. Gloria sat beside him, her anger dissolving into concern. How's your back today? The same, he admitted. Standing for too long makes it worse. 3 years ago, his music teacher, Ms. Torres, had lost her temper when Elijah had insisted on standing rather than sitting during band practice. Not understanding his pain was from a previous beating she'd given him, she had pushed him roughly into a chair, aggravating his injury. The school had dismissed their complaints, calling it disciplinary action, leaving Elijah with chronic pain and no justice. Gloria reached for the worn guitar in the corner, a yard sale find she'd scraped together $30 to buy on Elijah's 14th birthday. Play for me, she said softly. It always makes us both feel better. Across town, Marcus Hartwell tossed his lacrosse gear onto his bed and headed for the music room. At 16, he had his mother's blonde hair and his late father's tall frame, but none of their drive. He dreaded his upcoming guitar lesson. Marcus, come here please, his mother called from her study. He found her at her desk, still dressed in her designer clothes despite having been home for hours. Your guitar teacher called. He says you haven't been practicing. Marcus shrugged. I hate those lessons. I'm no good at it. Your father loved music, Vivian said, her voice softening at the mention of her late husband. He would have wanted you to learn. Dad would have wanted me to find my own thing, Marcus countered. Not force something I have no talent for. Vivian's expression hardened. We had an incident today. Gloria's son was in your music room, playing your guitar without permission. Marcus's eyes widened. Gloria has a son? Yes. His name is Elijah. He's a bit older than you. Vivian shuffled some papers. I've scheduled an extra lesson for you tomorrow. Mr. Reynolds is making time especially. Marcus bit back a groan. Fine. Later that night, he snuck into the music room and picked up his guitar, remembering how his father used to play for him. Despite 3 years of expensive lessons, the instrument still felt foreign in his hands. He wondered about Gloria's son. What would drive someone to risk their mother's job just to play a guitar? Marcus had every opportunity but no passion. Somewhere across town, someone had all the passion but no opportunity. The irony wasn't lost on him. The morning light cast long shadows across the Hartwell kitchen as Gloria methodically polished the copper pots. She'd arrived early, hoping to speak with Mrs. Hartwell before the rest of the staff arrived. Every noise made her jump, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios of unemployment and lost health insurance. Gloria. The voice behind her made her nearly drop the pot she was cleaning. She turned to find Vivian standing in the doorway, already dressed in a tailored suit despite the early hour. Mrs. Hartwell, I wanted to apologize again for yesterday. It won't happen again, I promise. Vivian entered the kitchen, her expression unreadable. I've been thinking about this all night, Gloria. This isn't just about someone being where they shouldn't be. This is about trust. Gloria felt her heart sink. I understand, ma'am. Do you? Vivian's voice hardened. That guitar was a limited edition Fender Stratocaster. It cost $12,000. What if it had been damaged? Gloria's eyes widened at the amount, almost 6 months of her salary. Elijah would never, you don't know what he would never do, Vivian cut her off. You didn't know he was in the music room, did you? What else don't you know? Gloria felt heat rising to her face. My son is not a thief, Mrs. Hartwell. I didn't say he was, Vivian said, though her tone suggested otherwise. But I have to consider the possibility that he was in there for reasons beyond just playing around. The implication hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Are you suggesting he was going to steal it? Gloria's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and indignation. I'm suggesting that a teenage boy from your circumstances might see a very expensive instrument as an opportunity. The silence that followed was deafening. Gloria stared at her employer of 8 years, seeing for the first time the full extent of the woman's prejudice. I think it would be best if Elijah didn't come here anymore, Vivian continued, her voice businesslike. I can't have someone I don't trust in my home. Mrs. Hartwell, please, Gloria said, desperation creeping into her voice. Sometimes he has to wait for me because of his medical appointments. He has nowhere else to go. That's not my concern, Vivian replied coldly. Figure something out or... The kitchen door swung open, and Elijah stood there, having just arrived to meet his mother for a ride to his doctor's appointment. Mom. His eyes darted between Gloria and Vivian, immediately sensing the tension. You shouldn't be here, Vivian said sharply. I came to apologize, Elijah said, straightening his posture despite the pain it caused. What I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. The guitar was just so beautiful, and I've never had the chance to play one like that. Vivian's expression didn't soften. So you admit you were drawn to its value? No, Elijah said, confusion crossing his face. I was drawn to its sound. Music is. Mrs. Hartwell thinks you were planning to steal it, Gloria interrupted, her voice tight with anger. Elijah's eyes widened. What? No. I would never. I think you both need to leave, Vivian said firmly. Gloria, take the day off. We'll discuss your continued employment tomorrow. My continued. Gloria echoed, stunned. You're firing me because my son played a guitar. I'm considering terminating your employment because your son was in a private area of my home without permission, touching an extremely valuable item, and because you seem unable to understand the seriousness of this breach of trust. Elijah stepped forward, ignoring the twinge in his back. Please, Mrs. Hartwell, don't punish my mom for what I did. We need this job. My medical bills. That's enough, Vivian cut him off. Your mother's employment is between her and me. She turned back to Gloria. I'll expect your decision about your son's future visits by tomorrow morning. As Vivian swept out of the kitchen, Gloria slumped against the counter, 8 years of dedicated service crumbling around her. Mom, I'm so sorry, Elijah whispered, fighting back tears. Gloria straightened, a determined look replacing her defeated expression. We won't give her the satisfaction of seeing us beg. Let's go. As they walked out, neither noticed Marcus watching from the stairwell, his expression troubled by what he'd just witnessed. Marcus couldn't focus on his homework. The scene he'd witnessed that morning kept replaying in his mind, his mother's cold voice, Gloria's quiet dignity, and the look of devastation on her son's face. He'd always taken Gloria's presence for granted, barely noticing the woman who kept their home immaculate. Today was the first time he'd seen her as a person with a life beyond their walls. And her son, something about him nagged at Marcus's memory. He abandoned his textbook and headed to the music room. Standing in the doorway, he pictured the scene his mother had described, Gloria's son playing his guitar without permission. But there was something his mother hadn't mentioned, something important. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed his friend Tyler. Hey, can you cover for me if my mom calls? Tell her I'm at your place studying. An hour later, Marcus stood at the address he'd looked up in his mother's employee records. The apartment complex was clean but aging, a far cry from his family's estate. He hesitated before knocking on Unit 3B. The door opened, and Marcus found himself face to face with Elijah Williams. Recognition flashed in Elijah's eyes, followed by wariness. What are you doing here? I'm not sure, Marcus admitted. I think I need to talk to you. Elijah glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside, partially closing the door behind him. My mom's resting. She's pretty upset. I heard everything this morning, Marcus said quietly. I'm sorry about what my mother said. Elijah shrugged, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his casual response. It's not your fault. I was there yesterday too, Marcus continued. When you were playing my guitar. I was coming home early and heard music from the driveway. I thought my teacher had arrived early, but it wasn't him, it was you. Elijah's expression shifted to alarm. Look, I already apologized. No, you don't understand, Marcus interrupted. It was amazing. Better than anything I've ever played, better than my teacher even. Where did you learn to play like that? The question seemed to catch Elijah off guard. Nowhere. Everywhere. YouTube tutorials, mostly. And books from the library. You're self-taught. Marcus couldn't hide his astonishment. But that piece you were playing, I wrote it, Elijah said softly. Marcus stared at him. You wrote that? You're not just a guitarist, you're a composer. I don't know if I'd call myself that, Elijah said, embarrassment coloring his cheeks. I just hear melodies in my head and try to play them. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. Can I hear more? Please. Elijah hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in. But be quiet, okay? My mom needs rest. The small apartment was spotless and modestly furnished. In the corner of the living room stood a battered acoustic guitar that had seen better days, its finish worn away in spots from years of use. Elijah picked it up and sat on the edge of the sofa, adjusting his position carefully. Marcus noticed the slight wince as he settled. Are you okay? Old injury, Elijah said dismissively. It acts up sometimes. Then he began to play, and Marcus forgot everything else. The sound that emerged from the cheap guitar was transformative, complex, emotional, and utterly captivating. Elijah's fingers moved with a fluidity that Marcus could only dream of achieving, creating a melody that seemed to tell a story without words. When he finished, Marcus sat in stunned silence. That's just something I've been working on, Elijah said, mistaking Marcus's silence for criticism. It's incredible, Marcus finally managed. You have an actual gift. And here I am, with the best guitar and teacher's money can buy, and I can barely play Smoke on the Water without messing up. Vivian looked up from her laptop as Marcus burst into her study without knocking, something he rarely dared to do. Marcus, what on earth? You're wrong about him, Mom, Marcus blurted out. About Elijah. Vivian's expression hardened. You went to see him? After what happened? I had to. Marcus paced the room, uncharacteristic energy radiating from him. You don't understand. He wasn't in the music room because he wanted to steal anything. He was there because he's a musician, a real one, not like me. Marcus, sit down, Vivian commanded. I don't know what story he's told you. It's not a story. Marcus interrupted. I heard him play yesterday, before you found him. I was in the driveway. And today, I went to their apartment and heard him play again. Mom, he's incredible. He composes his own music. On a guitar that's falling apart. Vivian stared at her son. In 16 years, she had never seen him this passionate about anything. You went to their apartment. Without telling me. Marcus, that was completely inappropriate and potentially dangerous. Dangerous? Marcus laughed bitterly. The only dangerous thing was discovering that you were ready to fire a woman who's worked for us for 8 years because her son played a guitar. That's enough, Vivian snapped. You don't understand adult matters. I understand talent when I hear it, Marcus countered. And I understand that Elijah has something I'll never have, no matter how many expensive lessons you buy me. Vivian's expression softened slightly. Is that what this is about? You feeling inadequate about your music? No, Mom. This is about you being unfair, Marcus said firmly. Elijah doesn't deserve what you accused him of, and neither does Gloria. Vivian sighed, rubbing her temples. Even if what you're saying is true, it doesn't change the fact that he was somewhere he shouldn't have been, touching things that weren't his. Then let him touch them. Marcus exclaimed. Let him play my guitar. I never use it anyway. The silence that followed was heavy. Vivian studied her son, seeing for the first time a conviction that reminded her of his father. "What exactly are you proposing?" she finally asked. "Let Elijah play. Let him audition for you," Marcus said earnestly. "If you hear him, you'll understand. And maybe he could even teach me. I'd learn more from him than from Mr. Reynolds." "You want me to fire your professional teacher and hire the maid's son instead?" Vivian's tone was incredulous. "I want you to listen," Marcus said simply. "Just listen to him play once. That's all I'm asking." Vivian considered her son's request. She'd never seen him advocate for anyone like this before. "Fine," she conceded. "One audition. But Gloria will need to be present, and there will be rules. And I'm not making any promises beyond listening." Marcus broke into a wide smile. "Thank you, Mom. You won't regret this." After he left, Vivian sat back in her chair, unsettled by the entire exchange. Years of carefully maintaining boundaries between employer and staff were being challenged by her own son. And for what? Some undiscovered musical prodigy living in Gloria's small apartment? She picked up her phone to call Gloria, then hesitated. What if Marcus was right? What if she had judged Elijah unfairly? The possibility made her uncomfortable, forcing her to confront biases she preferred not to acknowledge. The Hartwell music room felt different today, tense, formal, like a courtroom awaiting a verdict. Vivian sat rigidly on the antique settee, while Gloria stood nervously by the door, her work uniform exchanged for her Sunday best. Marcus paced excitedly, checking his watch every few minutes. "He'll be here," Gloria assured them. "His physical therapy appointment sometimes runs late." Vivian nodded stiffly, still uncomfortable with the entire arrangement. She'd spent the previous night researching musical prodigies from underprivileged backgrounds, as if preparing for a business negotiation. The door finally opened, and Elijah entered. He wore a pressed white shirt and khaki pants that Gloria had obviously laid out for the occasion. His movements were slightly stiff, more pronounced than before. "I'm sorry I'm late, Mrs. Hartwell," he said formally. "Thank you for this opportunity." Vivian studied him with new eyes, looking for signs of the talent Marcus had described so enthusiastically. All she saw was a polite teenager standing awkwardly in her music room. "Marcus seems to think very highly of your musical abilities," she said coolly. "I've agreed to listen." Elijah nodded, moving toward the guitar that stood on its stand, the expensive Fender Stratocaster that had started this whole situation. He hesitated before touching it, looking to Vivian for permission. "Go ahead," she said. "That's why we're here." Elijah picked up the guitar with reverence, adjusting the strap over his shoulder. He winced slightly as he positioned himself. "Are you in pain?" Vivian asked, more curious than concerned. "It's manageable, ma'am," he replied quietly. Gloria stepped forward. "Elijah, maybe we should reschedule." "I'm fine, Mom," he insisted. "I want to do this." He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and began to play. The transformation was immediate and undeniable. His fingers moved across the strings with a confident precision that even Vivian, with her limited musical knowledge, could recognize as extraordinary. The melody started simple, then built in complexity, layers of sound intertwining to create something that filled the room with emotion. Vivian found herself leaning forward, her skepticism fading. The boy played with his entire body, swaying slightly as if the music moved through him. His face reflected every note, joy, pain, longing, with an authenticity that couldn't be taught or purchased. As the piece reached its crescendo, the door behind them opened. Mr. Reynolds, Marcus's guitar teacher, entered with his usual punctuality for their scheduled lesson. He paused, listening, his professional assessment evident in his narrowed eyes. Elijah, unaware of the new audience, continued playing until the piece reached its natural conclusion. When the final notes faded, the room remained silent for several beats. "That was extraordinary," Mr. Reynolds said finally, breaking the spell. "Where did you study?" Elijah turned, startled by the stranger's presence. I haven't studied formally, sir. Mr. Reynolds approached, professional curiosity overriding social niceties. Impossible. That technique, that understanding of composition, I taught myself, Elijah explained. YouTube, library books, listening to recordings. And I practice whenever I can. On what instrument? Mr. Reynolds asked, eyeing the expensive guitar in Elijah's hands. I have an old acoustic at home, Elijah answered. Nothing like this. Mr. Reynolds looked to Vivian, his expression difficult to read. Mrs. Hartwell, who is this young man? Before Vivian could answer, Marcus jumped in. This is Elijah Williams. Gloria's son. The one I told you has more talent in his pinky than I have in my whole body. Mr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Well, that appears to be an accurate assessment. What was that piece you were playing? I don't recognize it. Elijah glanced at Gloria, who gave him an encouraging nod. It's something I wrote, sir. I call it Beyond Walls. You composed that? Mr. Reynolds couldn't hide his astonishment. Without formal training in music theory? It just makes sense to me, Elijah said simply. I hear it in my head first, then I find it on the strings. Mr. Reynolds turned to Vivian, professional excitement breaking through his usual reserved demeanor. Mrs. Hartwell, this young man has extraordinary natural talent. With proper training, he could. I believe we've heard enough for today, Vivian interrupted, rising from her seat. Her expression was unreadable. Thank you, Elijah. The abrupt dismissal sent a wave of tension through the room. Gloria stepped forward to take Elijah's arm, ready to leave before things deteriorated. Mrs. Hartwell, Mr. Reynolds persisted, you must understand how rare this kind of natural ability is. In all my years of teaching, I've never encountered. I said that's enough, Vivian repeated firmly. She turned to Gloria and Elijah. Please wait in the kitchen. I need to speak with Mr. Reynolds privately. As they left, Elijah carefully placing the guitar back on its stand, Marcus followed them out, shooting a disappointed look at his mother. The door closed behind them, leaving Vivian alone with the music teacher. That boy has a gift, Mr. Reynolds said immediately. A genuine gift that shouldn't be wasted. Vivian sank back onto the settee, her composure faltering for the first time. I know, she admitted quietly. I could hear it. The kitchen was silent except for the rhythmic ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Gloria stood by the counter, her posture rigid with tension, while Elijah sat carefully on a stool, still adjusting from the emotional high of playing to the anxiety of waiting for Vivian's verdict. You were amazing, Marcus said, breaking the silence. Did you see Reynolds' face? He's never looked at me like that. Elijah gave a small smile. Thanks for arranging this. Whatever happens, it meant a lot to play that guitar again. What happens is that you're going to get lessons, Marcus insisted. Mom would be crazy not to see your talent. Gloria placed a hand on her son's shoulder. Elijah, maybe we should discuss your back. If Mrs. Hartwell asks about your discomfort. Elijah nodded reluctantly. She's going to find out eventually. Find out what? Marcus asked, curiosity piqued. Elijah and Gloria exchanged a look, having a silent conversation only people who've weathered storms together can have. 3 years ago, Elijah began, I tried to join the school band. I'd been teaching myself guitar for about a year and thought I was ready. Gloria's grip on his shoulder tightened supportively. The band teacher, Ms. Torres, was known for being strict. On my first day, she told everyone to sit down, but... He paused, discomfort crossing his face. I couldn't. The day before, she punished me for being disrespectful when I corrected her about a chord progression. She'd made me stand in the corner for an hour, and when I tried to explain, she hit me with a ruler across my lower back, hard enough to leave bruises. Marcus's eyes widened. A teacher hit you? It wasn't the first time, Gloria said quietly. Ms. Torres had a history of being physical with certain students. Always the ones from our side of town, never the ones whose parents could cause trouble. Elijah continued, so when she told everyone to sit the next day, I couldn't. My back was too bruised. I explained I needed to stand, but she thought I was challenging her authority again. She grabbed me by the shoulders and forced me down into a chair. He took a deep breath. I felt something tear. The pain was immediate. Mom took me to the emergency room, but by then the damage was done. The doctor called it a lumbar strain with possible disc involvement. Whatever it was, it never fully healed. That's why you were standing when you played at your apartment, Marcus realized. And why you were in pain today. Elijah nodded. Sitting for too long makes it worse. Standing hurts too, but differently. I've learned to manage it. We reported it, Gloria added, her voice hardening. The school did an investigation that went nowhere. Ms. Torres claimed Elijah was being disruptive and she was using appropriate disciplinary measures. Without witnesses willing to speak up. Your word against hers, Marcus finished, disgust evident in his voice. A black kid from the subsidized housing area versus a tenured teacher, Elijah said without self-pity. It wasn't much of a contest. The kitchen door swung open, and they all fell silent as Vivian entered. Her face betrayed nothing of her conversation with Mr. Reynolds. Marcus, please go to your room, she said. I need to speak with Gloria and Elijah privately. Marcus opened his mouth to protest but closed it again when he saw his mother's resolute expression. With a supportive nod to Elijah, he left. Vivian took a seat across from them, folding her hands on the table. Mr. Reynolds believes you have extraordinary natural talent, she said directly to Elijah. He's offered to take you on as a student. Gloria gasped softly, while Elijah's eyes widened in disbelief. However, Vivian continued, he also noticed your discomfort while playing. He's concerned it might impact your technique in the long run. Elijah glanced at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. I have a back injury, ma'am, he explained, then proceeded to tell Vivian what they had just shared with Marcus. As Elijah recounted the story, Vivian's expression gradually shifted from polite interest to genuine concern, then to barely concealed anger. This teacher still works at your school? She asked when he finished. Yes, ma'am, Gloria replied. She was promoted to department head last year. Vivian sat back, processing this information. For the first time, she was seeing Gloria and Elijah not as staff and staff's son, but as people who had been wronged by a system that should have protected them. Mr. Reynolds paced the music room, his excitement palpable as he addressed Vivian, who sat contemplating everything she'd learned in the past hour. Twice a week, at minimum, he insisted. With a talent like his, we shouldn't waste time. And he'll need a proper instrument to practice on at home. Vivian raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting I purchase a guitar for him? I'm suggesting an investment in extraordinary potential, Reynolds corrected. That boy has what we in music education call perfect pitch and intuitive composition skills that can't be taught. Do you realize how rare that combination is? The door opened, and Marcus slipped back in, having obviously been listening from the hallway. Did you decide, Mom? Is Elijah getting lessons? Vivian sighed at her son's intrusion but didn't send him away. Mr. Reynolds and I are discussing options. There's only one option, Marcus insisted. Let him study. Let him use my guitar, I don't mind sharing. Vivian studied her son. You've never shown this much interest in music before. Why the sudden passion? Marcus hesitated. Because watching Elijah play, it was the first time I understood why Dad loved music so much. It's not about playing notes, it's about telling a story with sound. Elijah can do that. I can't. His honesty surprised her. Are you saying you want to quit your lessons? No, Marcus said thoughtfully. I'm saying I want to learn differently. Maybe Elijah and I could learn together. He has the talent, and I have the resources. We could help each other. Mr. Reynolds considered this. A peer learning environment could be beneficial for both of them, though in different ways. Vivian stood up, making her decision. Have Gloria and Elijah come back in. When they returned, Elijah's face was composed but his eyes betrayed his nervousness. Gloria stood protectively close to her son. Elijah, Vivian began formally, Mr. Reynolds believes you have exceptional talent that deserves professional development. Hope flickered across his face, quickly controlled. I'm prepared to arrange twice-weekly lessons with Mr. Reynolds, here in our music room. Additionally, you'll have access to Marcus's instruments for practice, both here and potentially at your home, with proper care arrangements. Elijah's composure finally broke, his eyes widening. Mrs. Hartwell, I don't know what to say. There's more, Vivian continued. I've spoken with Dr. Mitchell, our family physician. He's agreed to examine your back injury and recommend a specialist if necessary. Any treatment will be covered. Gloria gasped. Mrs. Hartwell, we couldn't possibly. Vivian held up a hand. Consider it an investment, not charity. In return, I expect Elijah to mentor Marcus. They'll share some lessons, and Elijah will help Marcus develop his musical ear. Of course, Elijah agreed immediately. I'd be happy to. There's one more condition, Vivian added, her tone shifting. I want the name of your former school and this Ms. Torres's contact information. Gloria and Elijah exchanged surprised looks. May I ask why? Gloria ventured cautiously. Because no teacher should be allowed to physically harm a student and face no consequences, Vivian stated firmly. I sit on several educational boards and have contacts at the district level. It's time someone reviewed this incident properly. The room fell silent as the implications of Vivian's offer sank in. It wasn't just music lessons she was offering, but access to a world of privilege and connection that had previously been closed to them. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. If we're agreed, I suggest we begin immediately. Today's scheduled lesson with Marcus can become their first joint session. Elijah looked to his mother, who nodded through tears she was trying to hide. I don't know how to thank you, he said to Vivian. Thank me by proving Mr. Reynolds right about your potential, Vivian replied, her businesslike tone returning. And Marcus? Her son looked up expectantly. Thank you for helping me see what I was missing. As Mr. Reynolds began arranging the music stands, Vivian watched the scene with complex emotions. In trying to protect her son's expensive possessions, she had nearly missed something far more valuable, the opportunity to nurture a genuine gift, regardless of where it came from. And somewhere deep inside, she knew her late husband would have approved. 3 months passed in a blur of lessons, medical appointments, and gradual transformation. The music room, once Marcus's reluctant domain, became a vibrant space where both boys developed their talents, Marcus finding joy in music for the first time, and Elijah flourishing under professional guidance. Vivian observed these changes with growing appreciation, not just for Elijah's extraordinary musical gifts, but for the positive influence he had on her son. Marcus was more focused, more engaged, and happier than she'd seen him since before his father's death. The annual Hartwell Foundation Charity Gala presented the perfect opportunity to showcase this unexpected partnership. Traditionally, the event featured professional musicians, but this year, Vivian had a different vision. You want us to perform? Marcus asked incredulously when she proposed the idea. In front of all those people. Together, Vivian clarified. You and Elijah. Mr. Reynolds says you're both ready. Elijah, who had been carefully adjusting the new ergonomic chair Dr. Mitchell had recommended for his practice sessions, looked up with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The gala guests include several music industry professionals, Vivian continued. Including James Patterson from Meridian Records. Mr. Reynolds, who had been reviewing their sheet music, nearly dropped his coffee. James Patterson. The James Patterson. He produces all the major classical crossover artists. We've been friends for years, Vivian said with a small smile. He expressed interest when I mentioned Elijah's talent. The weight of the opportunity hung in the air. For Elijah, this wasn't just a performance, it was a potential doorway to a future that had seemed impossible just months ago. My back has been better since starting physical therapy, Elijah said thoughtfully. I think I could manage it. Gloria, who now worked reduced hours that accommodated Elijah's lessons and medical appointments, voiced her concern. "Are you sure, Elijah? The doctor said not to push too hard." "I'm sure, Mom," he said with quiet determination. "This is worth it." The night of the gala arrived with all the glamour the Hartwell name commanded. The mansion gleamed with additional lighting, valets parked luxury vehicles, and caterers served champagne to guests in formal attire. Gloria, no longer in her maid's uniform but dressed elegantly as Vivian's special guest, helped Elijah adjust his borrowed suit in one of the guest rooms. "No matter what happens tonight," she told him, straightening his tie, "I'm already so proud of you." Elijah smiled, but his mind was on the performance ahead. Mr. Reynolds had helped him arrange one of his original compositions for 2 guitars, with Marcus playing a simplified but essential part. The piece told Elijah's story, his struggles, his pain, and ultimately, his hope. In the main ballroom, Vivian was greeting James Patterson, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. "Vivian, you've been mysteriously cryptic about this performance," he said, accepting a glass of champagne. "You know I hear promising young musicians every day." "Not like this one," Vivian assured him. "Just listen with an open mind." As the crowd settled into their seats, Vivian took the small stage where a grand piano and 2 chairs with guitars awaited. "For those who know me well, you're aware that supporting the arts has always been a priority of the Hartwell Foundation," she began. "Tonight, I'm delighted to introduce 2 young musicians who represent what can happen when talent meets opportunity, regardless of background." She gestured toward the side of the room, where Marcus and Elijah entered. They took their places, adjusting their guitars and exchanging nervous glances. "This original composition is titled Beyond Walls," Vivian announced. "Composed by Elijah Williams and performed by Elijah and my son, Marcus Hartwell." As they began to play, the room hushed. Elijah's fingers moved across the strings with confidence born of natural talent and months of intensive training. Marcus, while less technically proficient, performed his part with genuine feeling, their contrasting styles complementing each other perfectly. The melody built from a simple, almost hesitant beginning to a complex expression of emotion that seemed to touch everyone in the room. Elijah played with his eyes closed at times, surrendering to the music despite the occasional wince when his back protested a particular movement. In the audience, James Patterson leaned forward, his professional interest clearly piqued. Beside him, Vivian watched with undisguised pride, not just in her son, but in Elijah as well, and in her own evolution that had made this moment possible. As the final notes faded, there was a moment of profound silence before thunderous applause erupted. The boys stood to take their bow, Elijah moving carefully but with evident joy. What none of them noticed was the woman in the back of the room, her face frozen in shock as she recognized the boy on stage, Ms. Torres, attending as another guest's +1, watching her former student receive a standing ovation from some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the city. The applause was still ringing in Elijah's ears as he and Marcus made their way through the crowd of admirers following their performance. Wealthy patrons and music enthusiasts alike wanted to congratulate them, particularly Elijah, whose composition had moved many to tears. "That was extraordinary," a silver-haired man said, shaking Elijah's hand firmly. "James Patterson, Meridian Records. We should talk about your future." Elijah's eyes widened. "It would be an honor, sir." "Find me before the evening ends," Patterson said, handing him a business card. "Talent like yours deserves development." As Patterson moved away, Marcus nudged Elijah excitedly. "Did that just happen? James Patterson wants to talk to you." Elijah looked down at the business card in his hand, hardly believing it was real. "This is all because of your mom. I still don't understand why she's doing all this for me." "Because you have talent," Marcus said simply. "And because she's learning to see beyond her own world." Vivian approached, elegant in her evening gown, a genuine smile on her face. "You were both magnificent. James is quite impressed, Elijah. He doesn't impress easily." "Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell," Elijah said sincerely. "For everything." "Your mother is looking for you," Vivian told him. "She's by the refreshment table." Elijah nodded and made his way across the crowded ballroom, carefully navigating through clusters of guests who smiled at him with newfound respect. His back was aching from the performance, but the pain seemed insignificant compared to the elation he felt. He spotted Gloria standing near a table laden with elaborate hors d'oeuvres, looking beautiful but slightly uncomfortable in her formal attire. "Mom! Mr. Patterson from Meridian Records wants to talk to me. He gave me his card and everything." Gloria's face lit up. "Oh, Elijah, that's wonderful." She pulled him into a gentle hug, mindful of his back. "Your father would have been so proud." Elijah Williams. The cold voice behind them cut through their moment of celebration. Elijah froze, then turned slowly to face the speaker. Ms. Torres stood there, elegant in a burgundy dress that couldn't disguise the hardness in her eyes. She looked exactly as Elijah remembered, severe, imposing, with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Ms. Torres," he acknowledged, his joy evaporating. Gloria instinctively stepped closer to her son, her expression changing from happiness to protective anger. "You have no right to speak to him." "I'm simply greeting a former student," Ms. Torres said smoothly. "One who appears to have developed quite a reputation. Imagine my surprise to see you performing at the Hartwell Gala." The tension between them drew curious glances from nearby guests. Elijah felt his chest tighten with the familiar anxiety that Ms. Torres had always provoked. "If you'll excuse us," Gloria said firmly, taking Elijah's arm. "I was particularly impressed by your ability to play while standing for so long," Ms. Torres continued, ignoring Gloria. "Especially given your history of discomfort in my classroom." The deliberate cruelty of the comment made Elijah stiffen. Before he could respond, Vivian appeared beside them, her social smile firmly in place but her eyes alert to the tension. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, looking between them. "Mrs. Hartwell," Ms. Torres said, extending her hand. "Diane Torres, music department head at Westridge Academy. I was just congratulating my former student on his performance." Vivian didn't take the offered hand. "Diane Torres? The teacher who physically assaulted Elijah, causing permanent injury to his back. That Diane Torres?" The directness of Vivian's question caused Ms. Torres's professional smile to falter. "I don't know what you've been told, but there was an incident of discipline that was fully investigated and dismissed," she said carefully. "Elijah had behavioral issues that required firm handling." "Behavioral issues?" Gloria repeated incredulously. "He asked a question about chord progressions." Ms. Torres's expression hardened. "Mrs. Williams, your son disrupted my classroom repeatedly. The school board supported my methods." "Your methods included hitting a child with a ruler and then forcibly pushing him into a chair despite his injuries?" Vivian asked, her voice dangerously calm. Interesting methods for an educator. People nearby were beginning to notice the confrontation. James Patterson approached, concern evident on his face. "Is there a problem, Vivian?" "James, perfect timing," Vivian said. "This is Diane Torres, the former teacher of our young composer. The one I was telling you about." Understanding dawned in Patterson's eyes. "Ah, the one who's being investigated by the State Board of Education for multiple incidents of physical discipline targeting minority students. That case is causing quite a stir among my contacts in the educational foundation world." Ms. Torres paled. "Investigation? What investigation?" "Oh, hadn't you heard?" Vivian asked with false sweetness. "After learning about Elijah's experience, I made some calls. The district reopened several complaints against you that were previously dismissed. They're quite thorough this time: interviews with former students, review of medical records, testimony from school staff who were previously afraid to speak up." Ms. Torres's composure cracked completely. "You can't do this. My reputation should reflect your actions," Vivian finished for her. "Now, I believe you're disturbing my guests. The door is that way." As security discreetly appeared to escort Ms. Torres out, she turned one last venomous look at Elijah. "You'll regret this." "No," Elijah said quietly, standing straighter despite his pain. "I won't." After she was gone, James Patterson placed a supportive hand on Elijah's shoulder. "That took courage, young man. Confronting your past while creating your future, that's the mark of a true artist." Elijah looked from Patterson to Vivian to his mother, seeing in their faces different versions of the same thing, belief in him and his talent. For the first time, he allowed himself to fully imagine a future where his music could take him beyond the limitations others had tried to impose. "Thank you," he said simply. "All of you." The weeks following the gala brought significant changes for everyone involved. The investigation into Ms. Torres's conduct gained momentum, with more former students coming forward with similar stories of targeted abuse. The district placed her on administrative leave pending the outcome, a fact that brought Elijah both relief and a complex mix of emotions he struggled to define. "It's okay to feel conflicted," Dr. Mitchell told him during one of his back treatment sessions. "Seeking justice isn't the same as seeking revenge." The distinguished physician had become more than just Elijah's doctor. He'd taken a personal interest in his case, recommending a treatment regimen that combined physical therapy, pain management, and specialized exercises. "The damage isn't permanent in the way you feared," he explained to Elijah and Gloria during a follow-up appointment. "With continued treatment and proper care, you should regain most, if not all, of your mobility without pain." Elijah had taken to doing his therapy exercises in the Hartwell music room before his lessons, finding that the stretches actually improved his playing posture. He was there one afternoon, carefully working through his routine, when Vivian entered unexpectedly. "Don't let me interrupt," she said when he started to stop. "Dr. Mitchell says consistency is important for your recovery." Elijah nodded gratefully and continued his exercises while Vivian sat nearby, reviewing some papers. "The Board of Education has scheduled a formal hearing next month," she said after a while. "They've asked if you would be willing to testify about your experience with Ms. Torres." Elijah paused mid-stretch. "Will I have to see her again?" "Not directly. You can provide your testimony via video statement if you prefer." He considered this, resuming his movements with careful precision. "I'll testify in person," he decided. "I want her to hear from me directly." Vivian nodded approvingly. "That's brave of you. Your mother mentioned you've been speaking with Dr. Mitchell about the emotional aspects of your experience as well." "He says I have some post-traumatic responses to authority figures," Elijah admitted. "It explains why I get anxious around some teachers, even when they haven't done anything wrong." "Healing takes time," Vivian said, setting aside her papers. "And it's not just physical." Elijah completed his final stretch and sat carefully on the specially designed chair Mr. Reynolds had acquired for him. "Mrs. Hartwell, can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask," she said with a small smile. "Why did you change your mind about me? About helping me?" Vivian was silent for a moment, formulating her answer. "I'd like to say it was because I recognized your talent immediately, but that wouldn't be honest. The truth is, my son saw something in you that I missed because I wasn't looking. He made me look." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her slacks. "I've spent most of my adult life maintaining what I thought were appropriate boundaries between myself and the people who work for me. I told myself it was professionalism, but Marcus helped me see it was something else, a way of keeping people like you and your mother at a distance that felt safe." "Safe from what?" Elijah asked. "From having to acknowledge your humanity as fully as my own," Vivian admitted. "From having to confront my own assumptions and prejudices. It's not something I'm proud of, Elijah." The honesty of her answer surprised him. "Thank you for telling me that." "Thank you for asking," she replied. "Growth requires uncomfortable conversations. Speaking of which, James Patterson called again yesterday. He's very interested in recording some of your compositions." Elijah's face lit up. "Really? Did he mention when?" "He suggested starting this summer, once school is out. He's also connected with Mr. Reynolds about formal music theory education options that would work with your schedule." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Gloria, who now entered the Hartwell home through the front door rather than the service entrance, a small but significant change in her status. The school just called, she announced, excitement evident in her voice. Elijah's been accepted into the summer music intensive at the conservatory. Full scholarship. Elijah jumped up, wincing slightly at the quick movement but too excited to care. Are you serious? The conservatory? That program only takes 20 students nationwide. Mr. Reynolds submitted your gala performance recording, Gloria explained. The director called personally to offer the spot. Vivian stood, genuine pleasure on her face. That's wonderful news. We should celebrate. Mrs. Hartwell has already done so much, Gloria began. Gloria, Vivian interrupted gently, I think it's time you called me Vivian, at least outside of working hours. The two women looked at each other, the employer-employee dynamic shifting visibly towards something more equal, more respectful. Thank you, Vivian, Gloria said finally. For everything. No, Vivian replied, watching Elijah's face glow with possibility. Thank you both for teaching me to see beyond my walls. 1 year later, the Hartwell Music Room had transformed from a showcase of expensive instruments to a working studio where music was created, practiced, and recorded. New soundproofing lined the walls, professional equipment occupied one corner, and the space buzzed with creative energy. Elijah sat at a digital workstation, headphones on, fine-tuning the arrangement for his latest composition. At 18, he carried himself with new confidence, his posture free from the pain that had once constrained him. Beside him, Marcus followed along on the score, offering suggestions and learning the production process. The door opened, and Gloria entered with Vivian, both women returning from a Community Arts Foundation meeting where they now served together on the board of directors. How's it coming? Gloria asked, kissing the top of her son's head. Elijah removed his headphones. Almost done. Mr. Patterson thinks this one could be perfect for the film score he's working on. The documentary about education reform? Vivian asked, setting down her briefcase. That seems appropriate. The past year had brought changes none of them could have imagined. Ms. Torres had been permanently removed from teaching, with the investigation uncovering a pattern of abuse that spanned her entire career. The case had drawn media attention, leading to broader conversations about discipline practices and accountability in schools. Elijah's music, meanwhile, had found an audience beyond anyone's expectations. His first recorded EP, produced by James Patterson, had been featured on several classical and crossover charts. More importantly, it had opened doors to opportunities in composition and performance that once seemed unreachable. Have you decided about the conservatory offer? Marcus asked, referring to the full scholarship Elijah had received to one of the nation's top music schools. I'm going, Elijah confirmed. But I'll defer for a year to complete the film project with Mr. Patterson. He says the experience will be as valuable as formal education. And you'll be back for holidays and breaks, Gloria added, still adjusting to the idea of her son leaving home. The guest room is yours whenever you need it. The guest room was a recent development. 3 months earlier, Vivian had invited Gloria and Elijah to move into the mansion's guest house, not as staff, but as family friends. Gloria had accepted on the condition that she continue her work, though now as the properly titled and compensated household manager rather than a maid. The university called about your presentation next week, Vivian told Elijah. They wanted to confirm you'll have all the equipment you need. Elijah nodded. Marcus is helping me prepare the visual elements. The presentation, a lecture and performance at the university's Conference on Arts Access in Underserved Communities, represented everything their journey had been about. Elijah would share his story and his music as a testament to what could happen when talent was recognized and nurtured, regardless of background. I never imagined this future, Elijah admitted, looking around at the studio, the compositions bearing his name, the people who had become an extended family. Any of it. That's the thing about walls, Vivian said thoughtfully. When they come down, we all see further than we could before. Marcus closed the score they'd been working on. We should head to the school auditorium. The benefit concert setup starts in an hour. The concert, featuring both Elijah and Marcus performing alongside other young musicians from diverse backgrounds, would raise funds for a new music education initiative aimed at providing instruments and lessons to students who couldn't afford them. As they gathered their materials, Elijah paused by the guitar still mounted on the wall, the expensive Fender that had started everything. He rarely played it now, having received his own custom instrument from a sponsor, but he always acknowledged it with a small nod of gratitude. "Ready to change some more lives?" Marcus asked, holding the door. Elijah smiled, taking one last look at the room where his future had begun with a forbidden melody and a confrontation that could have ended very differently. "More than ready," he said, stepping forward without pain, without limitation, without boundaries, beyond all walls. Dear friend, behind every judgment we make lies a story we don't yet know. Elijah's journey reminds us that talent, passion, and potential exist everywhere, often hidden by the barriers of prejudice and privilege. By recognizing the humanity in one another, we open doors that change lives forever. Music, like all art, belongs to everyone, regardless of background. Let's build a world where opportunity isn't determined by zip code or last name, but by the boundless potential within each person. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that challenge us to look beyond our walls and see each other fully. Together, we can compose a more harmonious world.